Okay, well that's an early Bob Dylan kind of rhythm, you know, like what I call a acoustic country blues, really. It's really, you know, straight up folk blues, I guess you would call that, you know, a la the Grateful Dead, early Grateful Dead stuff, Bob Dylan, people like that. And you hear it's kind of a timeless thing. But what I'm doing, just so you know, is I'm riffing off of this. I'm going to play, I have a little loop going, which I was just playing along to. And I'll get into that in a minute. But before I do, I wanted to show you the moves I'm making. So you got a G chord, right? And I've got my pinky on that third fret of the E string. And the reason for that is so that I can free up these two fingers, the first finger and the second finger, to do this. So what am I doing there? I'm taking my second finger and placing it on the second fret of the D string, and my first finger on the first fret of the C string. Almost looks like an A minor seventh, I should say, sort of form. But what's cool about this is I keep my G chord going, okay? So I'm playing that version of the G chord, and I'm hammering on those two notes I just showed you back and forth. Okay? What that does is it kind of gets a lilting rhythm going, sort of a really nice strum-drang rhythm. I'm using a pick, which is kind of rare for me, but I thought, you know, there's a lot of you guys use picks, so. So the second chord is a C chord, and I'm playing the full cowboy C with that one you know now. You probably know this C, and then if you just include that note there, the G note, you know, if you don't know that C, you should. It's a really full version. It sounds like this. And then back to the G rhythm. And a nice loping rhythm, and then a D chord, straight D, C, and then back to your G. Now I'm playing it slowly right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some licks you can play over that. I call it, well, I usually call it blues you can use, or you could call it country blues you could use, I guess, whatever. But, you know, the lines get kind of blurry with that stuff. But I wanted to show you, if you hit your open D string, and then you fret the second fret on the D string, then open G, and then jump up to the fourth fret of the G string, and an open G. So in slow motion it would sound like this. Kind of a cool little simple country lick. Now you can use any version of that. You can phrase it as you like, which I always say, you know, mix it up if you can. Or you could do just a hammer on the second fret of the D and then the open G. Those are all going to work. Okay, and I'm gonna expand a little further, but I'm not going to go too far with it, but I'm basically playing off a G major pentatonic, but we don't have to worry about all that stuff now. All we have to think about is what licks work over a G rhythm, okay? So in the context of that rhythm, that pattern, that vibe, I'm gonna go ahead and play what I just showed you along with the loop, okay? I hit the loop, and I'm gonna play, just kind of stick to that particular lick. I might vary a little, but I wanna keep it simple for you. So here it goes, something like this. Stay with it. Melodic, right? Now I'm going to do the second lick I showed you, which is so simple. I'll mix it with the other one. Let the notes ring for a while. So I'm basically using those 3-4 notes right in there. So that shows you that those licks I showed you there with those 4 notes. 5 notes. Repeat some of them, but you can get away with any version of those is what I'm trying to tell you. And then when I went to the D, you know, when I did the turnaround, oh sorry, I went to the C first. Those notes are all going to work. And then when you go to the D, if you jump up to that 4th fret on the G, which is, you know, sort of a melody, C, and I just repeated the hammer on. If you want, you can catch the low G note. Kind of sounds cool. Okay, now I'm going to show you a different way of doing it, utilizing some different strings, and then I'm not going to go too much further with it because I don't want to overburden you with all these different licks. But if you at least rock that kind of rhythm, and you're sitting around with a couple of guitar players, whatever, a couple of acoustics, or acoustic and electric, you're going to find this works really well. Just that rhythm. And it's really important to feel the pocket there. Don't hurry it, right? Just keep it right there, nice and easy. Very relaxed. You'll find that there's a, you know, what do they call that, 3 chords in the truth. There's a million songs that utilize the G, C, and D. We call it a 1-4-5, but again, I don't need to confuse you with all that stuff. I just need to show you stuff you can use and have, you know, get right up and running and have fun with. So the second set of licks I'm going to show you incorporate some different strings. So you're still using the D and the G string. Know that lick. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to and utilize the B and the high E string, so it'll be more of it. Now you don't have to do it exactly the way I'm doing it, but just know that these notes here are the 4th fret of the G string, 3rd fret of the B, 5th fret of the B, and the 3rd fret of the high E. Okay, we're not going to even worry about the names of the notes or any of that. Let's not even concern ourselves. But let's just say that this lick is going to work for you, okay? And so slow motion would be something like starting out with that first, and then maybe jump up. And then when you go to the C chord, what you can do is, and I'll explain a little bit of why this works, but you can do a hammer on the 5th fret of the B string whilst you're holding on to the 3rd fret of the E. So it sounds like this. I know you've heard that lick before, it's very country. So there's your C chord. And then back to the original lick. And if you want to go to a D chord and utilize that string, you can utilize the B string and the G together and go. Well, that's a pretty easy way to do it, but you have to keep in mind, I'm not doing a standard D form. You may know that one. You got a bar with your first finger, okay, on the 2nd fret of the G and the 2nd fret of the B and the 2nd fret of the E. Although you're playing a different, you're playing the 3rd fret on the B, so this is the D that I choose to use as opposed to that one, okay? People play it different ways, but the reason I do that is so I can hammer on with my 3rd finger on the 4th fret of the G string. So that's a hammer on. You're still working off the D chord. Now that one's a little more complicated. That's off of a C chord. And I'm hammering on the 2nd fret of the G string. So it's in context it would be there's your D, and then now if you want to do the simple version of that, you just first finger on the 1st fret of the B string, and then you utilize that 2nd finger to hammer on the 2nd fret of the G. And if you don't want to play it with the actual C chord, you don't have to. You can just go. So it's either, like if you're playing lead, you don't have to worry about it because you got somebody else strumming the rhythm, right? So you can just go. Now, officially, we would probably call that a double stop, okay? And again, you can go to jimmydillon.com for that stuff. I do a whole series of lessons on double stops. But that being said, anytime you're using two notes together in the same thing, I call them chordal melodies, which, you know, everybody calls it something different. But I'm a big fan of chordal melodies because you can do it even if you're playing solo, and I'll show you right now. You can do. Sounds pretty good. So I got little licks in between, right? Okay, that's cool. I got some lead licks. I got some chordal melodies going on, and I know they all apply to spelling out the chords themselves if you want to get theoretical about it, which we're not, by the way. But if we were, we would know that we're hitting utilizing that. And we're adding little hammer-ons and stuff. I call that connective tissue, and I think it's, especially on acoustic guitar, it's the key to it all. You know, it's what separates a fluent player with someone who's just playing some kumbaya stuff, right? If you can add melody to your rhythm playing, play along with the little loop that I made, and hopefully you can. The takeaway from this will kind of give you some vocabulary licks that you can put in your arsenal and enjoy. So here we go. This is the last part of this lesson, and again, if you go to jimmydillon.com, I got all kinds of stuff that works around this sort of style, sort of the old, like I said, the old Bob Dylan, early Grateful Dead style. So here we go with the loop, and here we go. Utilizing that B and that high E string. And here comes the C. Hammer around was me getting fancy with it, but if you like what you heard, go to my website, jimmydillon.com, and I got, we go much deeper into this, into some long lessons and stuff. And in the meantime, thanks for stopping by today and checking out my lessons and my stuff, and hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you down the road.